Joining me right now in a Fox Business exclusive is the CEO of Prudential Financial, John Strangfeld. John, it's good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. What do you think about all this uncertainty of what the president actually wants to replace Obamacare with, impacting the industry overall, uncertainty over the tax package? Are these big pieces of legislation going to impact markets if we actually don't see closure soon?
I don't see the health care having a big impact on that. I think the uncertainty around tax and what the outcomes of the taxes, I think, actually has a bigger impact. And it can be linked to other public policy objectives as well.
Because you really have to see a movement in economic growth, and you think that happens from tax reform?
I think that can happen from tax reform, and I also think there's certain public policy objectives that are important to be reflected in the tax reform as well.
Let's talk about Prudential Financial for a moment. You've changed the company, obviously. It's not a healthcare company. You've got a huge asset management, wealth management division, $1.2 trillion assets under management. How are you investing today? How are your clients viewing this market sentiment, which obviously has been record-setting?
Well, it takes different forms in different places. So, for example, in our particular case, we're a large insurance company, we're a large retirement company, and we're a large asset manager. 1.2 trillion, about two-thirds of that are institutional investors, such as those here in the Saudi Kingdom, which is partly why I'm here. Everyone has a different objective in terms of what they're trying to accomplish, but many of them are apprehensive about what's going on in the marketplace and how the returns they can achieve today match up with the obligations that they have in front of them.
Yeah, I want to ask you about retirement, because we just came off of a couple of weeks of uncertainty with regard to what this administration might do with 401k plans. And finally, the president comes out and says there will be no change to your 401k. What was your take on that?
That was a good conclusion.
Yes, it was.
So if you think about this, aging population, not only in the U.S., but in many countries, shrinking government safety nets, corporate employers' plans are less generous than they once were, and people are living longer. So when you combine all those together, it's a big challenge for people to maintain their quality of life in retirement. And the more we can do to have public policy that aligns with people's objectives of achieving that is really, really critical.
But you don't want any change in policy in terms of 401ks.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, we're already looking at a situation where people don't have enough money in retirement. You don't want to change a 401k where an employee is able to get a match from the company.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, we need to have more incentives to encourage people along the way. Not only that, many people have had their retirement risk shifted to their shoulders, whether it's the savings or whether it's the risk of knowing how long they're going to live. None of us know whether we're going to live to 72 or 102, so it's very difficult to know how we can save for that. Our parents' generation had a pension check show up in the mailbox once a month.
Right, exactly.
We don't have that today, so people have to address that individually, which is a much harder way to manage risk.
Now, you're here, as you just mentioned, you've got clients, obviously, a lot of your institutional clients, including the Kingdom.
Yes.
I thought it was really interesting what the Crown Prince has been saying in terms of the private investment fund. They've got 6 pools of capital. They gave $45 billion to SoftBank and that Vision Fund. They're investing in the Blackstone Infrastructure Fund. Where else do you think there's opportunity for an international investor like the Saudi Kingdom? Are they looking U.S., Europe? Where's the attraction?
Well, what they have historically done is exported a lot of capital, meaning investments into other regions of the world. It takes many different forms, such as some of the examples that you mentioned. What's interesting from what the Crown Prince was talking about yesterday is there's also going to be an added initiative of investing more extensively in their domestic marketplace as well.
Right, and Saudi's changing.
Yeah, Saudi's changing. And what's also fascinating about his efforts that were reflected in your moderated panel yesterday was the desire to link public policy with those objectives in ways that, frankly, other countries should consider replicating as well. You have a much better prospect of achieving your objectives if public policy is an enabler to outcomes. And clearly, he's focusing on having an enabling public policy.
Yeah, I think it's incredible that he wants to get that private investment fund, the PIF, up to above $2 trillion in assets by 2030.
Yeah, that's a big number.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually quite achievable given what they've done and given what they think. And by the way, they're very long-term investors, which, as are we, which is what we've been here for over 20 years, which has made that relationship as strong as it is they're thinking very long-term. But the neat thing about him, the Crown Prince, was his thinking around the use of public policy to enable things to happen. Frankly, we could take a page out of that book in our own country. We spend so much time on regulating versus enabling there's a real opportunity there.
It's one of the reasons that the Trump administration has rolled back regulations so much. Really.
Exactly right.
John, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Nice to see you here in Saudi.
Pleasure.
John Strangfeld joining us there. Thank you.